Good evening. Welcome to a new series. We're going to be doing the hymns of Swami Vivekananda. So we had done Karma Yoga before, and now we'll be doing the hymns of Vivekananda. He has composed a number of sacred hymns, mostly in two different languages, in Bengali and Sanskrit. And we're going to start with the hymn he composed in Bengali for Sri Ramakrishna. Every night we recite the translation here in Hollywood as Breaker of This World's Chain. We're going to look at the original Bengali language and look at it line by line and try to understand something about Swami Vivekananda and his view of Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Vivekananda, in addition to being an amazing orator and teacher of Vedanta and illumined soul and establisher of a new monastic order, he was also a poet, and he was also a great musician. He was highly trained in classical Indian music, and he composed some beautiful musical pieces, obviously with both the music and the words. And this particular hymn composed for Sri Ramakrishna's arati, that is when we wave the lights, as we do here every night, at every center of our order, almost every center of our order, this is done every night. A few exceptions would be Mayavati, the Advaita Ashrama in Mayavati, which is dedicated to Advaita alone, so no rituals are done there, and its branch in Calcutta. And I think a few centers in America where they don't want to, and maybe other Western centers where they don't want to increase the rituals, because the idea is once you start, you shouldn't stop. So it may be that not every center, but nearly every center of the order, we do this ritual of waving the lights. And here it takes about 10 minutes. In some of our centers, it has this kind of deep profundity to it, like especially if you go to Belur Mutt and see it done at Belur Mutt, where it seems to be done in slow motion. And there's this beautiful marble image of Sri Ramakrishna, and the pujari will be ringing the bell slowly, and slowly the lights moving slowly. And everybody's singing this hymn, which is sung there very slowly. And it's sung, there are 8 verses which are sung very slowly, and then the next 8, those same verses are sung at double speed. So the whole arati takes about 18 minutes at Belur Mutt to sing this one hymn, to sing it through. First 8 verses slow, then the 8 verses fast, then the last part is even a little faster. Now, how did this start? How did this tradition start? Swami Ramakrishna, who is one of Sri Ramakrishna's very close disciples, who served him very much during his last illness. After Sri Ramakrishna left the body, it was he who started doing regular daily worship to Sri Ramakrishna's relics. There were the ashes, the pieces of bone that were left after the cremation were collected and put in an urn. Actually, they were put in, first in one urn, they were going to be taken to Ramchandra Datta's Yogodhyan, and then the monastic disciples took most of them out of that urn and put them in a different urn and then gave the urn to Ram. So they actually were divided into Ramchandra and what finally ended up at Belur Mutt. But so he used to do very devotedly, do puja. He was trained in the traditional ritualistic worship of a Hindu deity in Hindu worship, and so he started doing that for Sri Ramakrishna. But as a living presence, Sri Ramakrishna was a living presence for him. And there's a description, I couldn't remember where I had read it, maybe in Swami Shivananda's reminiscences, of Shashi Maharaj, as he was called, or Swami Ramakrishna, doing the arati, and he'd be waving the fan at the end with great fervor and enthusiasm, and everyone would be drawn up into it. So in the very early days of the Bharanagore monastery, where there was just those few disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, and gradually a few young men joined. They used to have this. And what would they sing at that time? According to the life of Swami Vivekananda, they used to sing a verse which was adapted from the hymn chanted at the evening hour in Varanasi, in Benares, at the Vishwanath temple in Benares. So apparent, and the words given here are Jaya Shiva Omkara, Bhaja Shiva Omkara, Brahma Vishnu Sada Shiva, Hara 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 Mahadev. So obviously a song to Shiva, which they used to sing also at Bharanagore. I've heard a couple of renditions of this, but I was trying to think if I could sing it just now, but Jaya Shiva Yonkara, Jaya 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 Shiva Yonkara, Bhaja 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 Shiva Yonkara. We don't really know what they were singing exactly, but and it was adapted from the hymn chanted at Varanasi, so it wasn't exactly. But so when after Swami Vivekananda's first visit to the West from 1893 to 1896, at the beginning of 1897, he went back to India. And the monastery was then at Alambazar, and there was an earthquake, and it was dilapidated. So they had to move. And at the same time, Swamiji was able to purchase the land where the permanent center of the headquarters of the order is, at Belur Mutt. And so they moved the monastery to a rented house just south of Belur Mutt, called Nilambar Babu's house. Nilambar Mukherjee, he was a gentleman of Calcutta who had a garden house outside the city, across the river, and this house, and Holy Mother had also stayed in this house on two separate occasions. So they had rented it for Holy Mother. So Nilambar Mukherjee must have been known to some of the devotees, and so they rented this house. And it was at this house that they composed, that Swamiji composed this song. And so I'm just reading a little note from Swami Prameyananda, who was a vice president of the order, who knew a lot of the history, who sent in an email back in probably the 2009 or 2010 to Swami Atmajnananda, who had inquired about it. He says that when Swamiji returned to India after his first visit to the West, the monastery was then at Alambazar, and Shashi Maharaj was looking after the seva and puja, means the daily worship of Sri Ramakrishna. Immediately after his return to Calcutta, Swamiji sent Shashi Maharaj to Madras. He had told the Madrasis, I will send you one who is more orthodox than all your orthodox Brahmins. And he sent Shashi Maharaj, who came from a very orthodox family, no doubt about it. And Baburam Maharaj, Swami Premananda, succeeded Shashi Maharaj as being in charge of the daily puja. In the meantime, the monastery was shifted to Nilambar Babu's garden house at Belur. Swamiji was also there at that time. At Nilambar Babu's house also a small shrine was set up, and daily worship, etc., of Sri Sri Thakur was conducted as usual. At that time, Swamiji composed the Aratrika song, Khandana Bhava Bandhana, to be sung at the time of Aratrika. Now, this is what interesting point he notes. He did not compose the song as we sing it now. He composed a few stanzas, and then after every stanza, Namo Namo Prabhu portion was to be repeated. But the monks and brahmacharans who were actually singing the song during Aratrika found it difficult to sing it the way Swamiji suggested. So after some time, they told Swamiji about their difficulties. In the meantime, the monastery had been shifted to Belur Mutt. At Belur Mutt, Swamiji composed a few more stanzas and added to the original, and the Namo Namo portion was shifted to the near the end, just before the De Langa portion, which is what we do now. So that is the story of how it was composed and how it wasn't composed quite as we know it now. But what is this hymn? This hymn, first of all, it has a tremendous mood of profundity, of worship, of adoration. It's composed in a raga. It says in the book Mishra, and that means mixed, right? Mishra Bahar. Does that sound like anything? Mishra Bahar. But I don't know ragas, but the speciality of it is that the fourth note in the scale is augmented. So if we use the Indian scale, it's sa re ga ma pa dha ni sa. That ma is augmented. It's tivra, as we say in Indian music. So it's like a major scale, but with the fourth is augmented. If you use the Western, means it's higher. So do re mi fa so fa mi re do is regular. Do re mi fa so is augmented. See, it's a little higher. It's a half step higher. That's what I mean. And it was composed in what is called Dhrupad style, which is a traditional classical Indian style, particular especially to Bengal. And we're talking about, for the latecomers, Khandana Bhava Bandhana, its composition, and we're going to go through it. And it's typically we have to remember that in those days, nowadays, every center has one of these little keyboards with a pump attached to it. It's called a harmonium, a little mini organ, hand pumped. In 1897, there was no harmonium. It's a new addition. It came after Swamiji probably never saw one, I think. We can do research on when exactly they were introduced into India. They were adapted from German organs. Germany had the little pump organs where you pump with your feet and you play. And so they adapted it, cutting it down, making it smaller, so you pump with your hand and sitting on the floor. And it's now a standard instrument in Indian music, but it's a fairly new introduction to the Indian music, actually. So they would have had tanpura, the drone instrument, as it's sometimes called, with the 4 strings which are plucked in succession and fill the room. If it's tuned right, it fills the room with this beautiful background. We use it in our morning chanting, but we use one that's on the phone, on the mobile device. They would have had bakhawaj, which is an Indian drum, like a mridanga, a 2-headed drum, 1 head on each side. The speciality of the bakhawaj, it's a Bengali mridanga, as it were, but you've seen on the tablas and the mridangas this black circle, which forms a hard portion made of, I think, some kind of minerals that are ground together and pasted on, and that stays there. But and that contributes to the specific sound of the head of the drum. But the bakhawaj, they use dough, means whole wheat dough. And one of my duties when I was at Belur Mutt in the training center for about 2 months, I don't remember, it was for some time, I think it was for about 2 months. On my way to the temple for evening prayer, I would stop off in the kitchen where they were making chapatis, which are whole wheat bread, and the kitchen workers are there kneading that bread, and if it's hot, they're just covered with sweat, and you wonder how much of their sweat is going into the dough. But anyhow, maybe that's what makes it taste really good. Right. So my duty was to get a handful of that dough that they're making. They were expecting me. They would have it ready. I would come and I would take that and I would take it to the temple. And that is applied to the large head, the head played typically with the left hand. And it gives this sort of thumping sound that fills the temple and fills your heart with this thuds.
It goes on the inside of the head, right?
No, outside. It goes on the outside, and they add a little water.
Or in a mridanga, they put it on the inside, that sticky stuff.
In a mridanga?
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah.
How can they put it on the inside? Because it's
Put it inside the head.
there's no way to. Well, in a
They take it off, they put it on there, and it doesn't come.
in which
We're done.
really they do that? I see. In with a pakawaj.
With the tabla, it's the same.
Tabla, it has it black with permanent. It's sort of.
It's underneath.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
Thick.
I know nothing about that. It could be. That's interesting. We could find out more about that. But in with the pakawaj, it's applied just before playing it, and it's removed after you're done. It's applied newly every day, and it gives a different sound. So. That would be the instrument. And Swami Vivekananda was able to play pakawaj and sing at the same time. So I believe that he also sang this hymn playing the pakawaj. So it's an interesting question now to take up. Swami Vivekananda did not preach Sri Ramakrishna's personality. When he spoke in public, he only spoke twice in public in the West on his master, and I don't think ever in India he spoke in public on his master, on Sri Ramakrishna. He spoke once in New York and once in Wimbledon, England, on Sri Ramakrishna, and those two lectures have been kind of cobbled together into the lecture in the complete works called My Master. And he also says, let people understand Sri Ramakrishna as they will. Some may think of him as a saint, as a teacher, or some may consider him as God incarnate. It doesn't matter how we think of him. He never pushed anyone to accept Sri Ramakrishna in any particular light. So how did he actually think of Sri Ramakrishna? Perhaps we get a glimpse through this hymn. Because in this hymn, Swamiji clearly describes Sri Ramakrishna as an incarnation of the divine, God in human form. How do we understand that? What I usually say is, I don't know what God is. So how can I understand incarnation of God? Yes, I can say all the words. I can say the words, Satchidananda, the infinite consciousness and bliss, the existence itself, consciousness itself, or Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, God is truth, is knowledge, is infinity. Okay, I can say the words just as much as you can. Or God is love, God is infinite love. Okay, we can say these words, but what does it mean? Have we directly experienced that? So then what does it mean that infinite reality manifests a human body? It looks like our human body, but so the idea is that the avatar has a special kind of a body and is different from ordinary human beings. So at the very least, we can understand that a great teacher like Sri Ramakrishna doesn't come out of, as we come, at least according to Vedanta, drawn by our samskaras and drawn by our desires and dragged, as it were, by our karma to take birth. We come to work out our karma. We come to taste divine bliss and attain liberation. Someone like Sri Ramakrishna, or we could argue even someone like Swami Vivekananda, they come to show us the light, to show us the way to liberation, to show us how to get free of all limitations, of our bondage, as it were. And so that is the first line of this song. So as the arati begins, and I guess we can remember that the ritual of arati is at the end of the day, when it's supposed to be done after the sun sets. Now here in Los Angeles, because we're at high enough latitude, that when in winter the sun sets very early and in summer it sets very late. So the variation in sunset is so much that it really would throw our daily schedule off. So we have it at 6 p.m. And in winter it's quite a while after sunset, and in summer it's long before sunset. But typically it's done right after sunset, and the idea is that all this manifested universe we are offering back to the Lord, back to the divine. We wave the lights representing the element of fire, which represents how we experience this world through our sense of sight. Actually, the 5 elements are, the idea is that this is how we experience this universe. We experience this universe, how? Through 5 different organs, 5 different kinds of organs. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. That's how we interact with this world, through these 5. How we perceive everything. So through the eyes, light, fire. One element is fire. Another element is, in the order of the arati, then we offer water. Taste is the element water. Then we offer space, actually. That cloth that's waved, it represents space. Space is connected with sound. The sound travels through space, so there our sense of hearing, the element space. And then we offer a flower, which is intuitively, even we would say the sense of smell, isn't it? The earth element is represented by the flower, and that sense of smell is connected with that. And then we offer the fan, which is the air, obviously the element of air, and that's associated with the sense of touch. In a typical order of these 5 elements, in order of increasing subtlety, would be earth, water, fire, air, space, akasha. So these are offered back to the divine. It's as if as the sun goes down and everything goes back into calmness, and then we offer this universe back to the Lord, and in the morning again it manifests before our eyes. So then this hymn starts, and the very first line, Khandana Bhava Bandhana, breaker of the bondage of this world. Khandana is breaking, bhava, this world, bandhana, bonds, bondage. So we can ask, well, what do you mean, the world's bondage? Is this a bondage? This theme comes back again and again in this beautiful hymn of love, really. That's the question. Why we who have come here, we feel something is not quite satisfying in this world, or why would we come? Why would we come to a temple? Why would we study Vedanta? Unless we felt there's something dissatisfactory about life. That life as lived in the senses, life lived in seeking what most people seek, which is shelter and comfort and pleasure and attainment and some name and fame or notoriety or wisdom, knowledge, whatever we seek, beauty. Still, even seeking all those things, attaining all those things, there's some dissatisfaction. And then at the same time, we find that mastering our own minds is tremendously difficult. Most of us are not masters of our minds. We are mastered by our minds. We are drawn here and there by our own desires. And in spite of ourselves, we do things we don't want to do. And according to the Hindu idea, we do it again and again and again. In an endless chain coming again and again and again. So when are we going to get out? To break that chain is extremely difficult. But once in an eon, once in a tremendous age, a great soul is born who can cut that bond, who can break that bondage. So Swami Vivekananda is suggesting Sri Ramakrishna is such. Interesting point about this hymn, nowhere does he mention the name of Ramakrishna. It's a universal hymn to the God-man, God-person. And I've heard that there's a church in Calcutta where they sing this hymn to Jesus. There's no name mentioned, so it can apply to any God-man or God-woman, actually, any great world teacher. So we know Swami Vivekananda composed it for Sri Ramakrishna, obviously, but it's a universal hymn. And also, though it's composed in the Bengali language, it's most of the words, almost all the words are Sanskrit words or Sanskritic words. So anyone at least in India, speaking a Sanskritic language in India or being familiar with Sanskrit would be able to understand the song easily. And of course, we in the West will have a little more difficulty unless we study a little bit, but it's worth studying. That's why I'm taking this up. Khandana Bhava Bandhana. And I'll also refer to the translation we follow here. It's the translation we read here. Apparently, we used to sing Khandana here also, and then the monks complained that, well, you know, all this singing, there's almost no time left for meditation. We want more time for meditation. So it turned into just reading the translation. At Trabuco, we sing the whole thing, as you know. So Swami Prabhavananda with Christopher Ishwood composed the translation, which is not a very literal translation, but it is a beautiful and poetic translation. So it starts with, breaker of this world's chain. So it's addressing Sri Ramakrishna. This is really a hymn of love. One of our senior monks, and I should research it next time, I'll give you the exact quote if I can find it, but it seems to have said that this hymn describes the goal of our spiritual life. Sri Ramakrishna as the God-man, as a manifestation of divinity, and what that is like. And then the next hymn he composed, because he composed two hymns which are sung in the evening. After the arati is over, and the final waving of the fan is done, and the music has ended, the song has ended, then a second hymn is sung, Om Hring Ritang. We sing it here every night. And this, he says, this is the path, the goal and the way. So Swami Vivekananda's second hymn, which is a hymn of seeking refuge, the hymn of utter surrender, of Sharanagati. But we'll take that one up in course of time. Khandana Bhava Bandhana, and it's poetic. Jaga Vandana Vandi Tomai. Jaga Vandana, adored by all, worshipped by the whole world. Vandi Tomai, we adore you, we worship you, we worship thee. Tumi, Tomai, the informal. That's why in English also we say, breaker of this world's chain, we adore thee, whom all men love. In a little bit older English, thee and thou were used for the intimate form of address, whereas you is the more formal form of address. In Indian languages, there are typically three, in many of the Indian languages, as also many European languages. There are 2 or 3 forms of address, the informal and the formal. And in Hindi, Bengali, there's the super intimate and informal. And in Dutch also, they have the informal and the formal and the extra formal, which is not used anymore. But interestingly, in the Dutch language, they use the extra formal for God. So this hymn when it translated into Dutch, I read it once and I was shocked, because there it uses this super formal address, like you have to address God as like most revered, at this kind of extra reverence. Whereas in this hymn, it's on intimate terms. We are on intimate terms with God. Though when we refer to God in the third person, we use the respectful form. In the Bengali, we say, but when we're addressing the divine, we use the informal, the intimate form of address. Why? Because God is our very own. God is not. We don't conceive of the divine as some distant being from us. Our very own mother, our very own father, our very own friend and companion, our eternal companion. So we use tumi, or tum, or tu in French, or je in Dutch. or du in German, whatever language we're speaking, we can use the intimate form of address. Let's not put distance. Let's feel that God is close to us. So how is it that Swami Vivekananda says, the whole world adores you? Most people have never heard of Sri Ramakrishna. When Swamiji composed this hymn in 1897, how many people had heard of Sri Ramakrishna? Of course, he had given his talks on his master in America, so probably a few thousand people had heard of Sri Ramakrishna. 10,000 people, maybe? Who knows? Possibly. By that time, possibly 10,000 or 15,000 people might have heard Sri Ramakrishna's name. He said, the whole world worships you. What does he mean? Transcendent God, that the whole world, but not even everybody loves God. Fools, yes. Maybe he had a vision. I think that is one of the ideas, that he is presenting Sri Ramakrishna, he's calling on Sri Ramakrishna as an embodiment of the divine, and that the divine is the beloved. Now, if we go back to the Upanishads, what do they tell us? The famous conversation between Yajnavalkya and Maitreyi. I'm sure Swami Sarvadevanandaji mentions this conversation many times, where he tells his wife, what? He tells her the husband is not loved for the sake of the husband. The husband is loved for the sake of the self. The wife is not loved for the sake of the wife. The wife is loved for the sake of the self. So Swami Vivekananda points this out, that is that all love, actually all love is love for God. Only in many cases, in most cases perhaps, it is unconscious. So everybody in this world loves somebody. Everybody in this world loves something. This idea, I think, is that if this hymn, being a hymn to the divine, expresses that idea that yes, ultimately everyone who loves is loving God. And that love itself is God. So that's how I understand this line, Jaga Vandana. And then Vandi Tomai. We call this our evening prayer oftentimes, but actually prayer can take different forms. In this particular case, it takes the form of simply of adoration, of describing the glories. There's only one line in which Swami Vivekananda says, give us something. And what is that? Give us love. give us anurag, that intense attachment for you, at your feet. So otherwise, there's no asks in this hymn. There's nothing of give me this, give me that. There are those kinds of hymns. O Lord, protect me. O Lord, save me. I love that hymn, the Chandrasekharashtakam, the hymn to Chandrasekhara, where the refrain is so thrilling. It's Chandrasekhara, 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 Pahimam. Chandrasekhara, 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 Rakshamam. It's a desperate plea from the heart of the devotee. O Lord, Shiva, the bearer of the crescent moon, Chandrasekhara, save me, protect me. Very thrilling hymn. But here in this hymn is not like that. This hymn is simply a hymn of praise, of love. So we see that how much Swami Vivekananda actually loved his master. He hid it. When Sri Ramakrishna, after he left the body, Swami Vivekananda had been charged with leading the disciples. Sri Ramakrishna had given him that task, take care of these boys. On the last day of his life, before leaving the body, he told him many times, take care of these boys, look after these boys. And the boys had also understood Vivekananda is our leader. Naren at that time, Naren is our leader. So he couldn't show his grief. But the other disciples would find every night, every morning, his cushion would be wet, completely wet with tears. He was crying, he was weeping at night at the loss of his master. So, Vanditomai, we adore you, we love you, we worship you. Niranjana Nara Rupa Dhara Nirguna Gunamai. This completes the first verse. Niranjana, an anjan is a stain. So Niranjan means stainless, completely pure. That which has no adulteration. When we think of pure water, we think, it's pure water. It has nothing other than water. There's no chemicals mixed in it. So distilled water is the purest water you can get. Just H2O, nothing mixed in it. Like the pure gold. There's no alloys mixed in it. 24 karat. There's just gold, the pure element gold, nothing else. So Sri Ramakrishna is pure. What? Pure what? Well, maybe we'll get a little more sense of pure what in some of the next verses. But absolutely pure. We also, of course, take this word purity to mean in his heart there's no crookedness. He's free of the kinds of things that we commonly call impurities in our minds, like lust, like anger, like greed, like fear, like all of these things. These are all strong emotions or tendencies which cause us a lot of pain, a lot of trouble. And he is free of all of those kinds of... and if we study his life, if we read the gospel, we know how pure-hearted he was, how he had completely mastered lust. He had gone beyond lust, beyond body idea. And yet, this is Niranjana Nara Rupa Dhara. So on the one hand, he is completely pure and stainless, and yet taking a human form. Nara, it means man, Rupa, form, Nara Rupa Dhara, taking or holding. You manifested, you came here in this world as a human being. There's that beautiful description which Sri Ramakrishna gave to some of the disciples, not to Vivekananda, but to some of the others, of how he recognized Swami Vivekananda. And he describes how his mind was traveling on a luminous path into spiritual realms far above this world, and it had passed beyond even the realm of the gods and was going into the non-dual realm, and then passed into some kind of realm where there were 7 sages, luminous sages, seated in deep meditation, in profound meditation. There's this huge mass of undifferentiated light, the infinite Brahman, as it were. But just before merging in that, his mind found it was in the realm of these 7 sages who were immersed in samadhi. And then he sees, in this vision, he sees that undifferentiated light start to take a form of a young child, an infant. And that infant approaches one of these sages, and to wake it from its samadhi, clasps its arms, its hands around the sage's neck. And the sage opens its eyes and looks with infinite love at this divine child, this holy child. And the child says, I am going down. You must also come. And the sage, without giving any verbal reply, assents by a look that, yes, I understand, I'll come down. And then Sri Ramakrishna said, when I saw Naren, I recognized him as that sage. And afterwards he confessed that, yes, the divine child was he himself. So this is recorded in the Sri Ramakrishna Lila Prasanga, the biography of Sri Ramakrishna by Swami Saradananda. So Nara Rupa Dhara, that mass of undifferentiated light in Sri Ramakrishna's vision has taken the form of an infant to come here and has dragged some sage, we don't know who, immersed in deep meditation of Vivekananda, with him to broadcast his message over the whole world. Then this last phrase, Nirguna Gunamoy. Here, it's almost like it's a rhyme, it's almost like a pun or something. And Swamiji uses the same format almost in the second hymn that he writes, Om Hring Ritang, where we have Gunajit Gunedyaha. It means the gunas. What are the gunas? If you've been studying Vedanta for a little while, then you've come across the gunas many times. Bhagavad Gita. Do we have a sense? What are the gunas? Okay, Rajas, Tamas, Sattva. Usually we order them from most subtle and preferable to least preferable. But most of us are true. Most of us are in the state of Rajas and Tamas, and we're striving to get to Sattva. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Or from Tamas, we go from Tamas to Rajas and from Rajas to Sattva. What are they actually? The silence is deafening. Tendencies could be called tendencies. Qualities, sometimes called qualities. Actually, the Sankhya calls them the strands. They're like strands that make up this world. This entire universe is woven together of the strands of the gunas. The confusing part is that the word guna also means quality. Or especially we call it a good quality. Someone has good qualities, bhalogun, you have good qualities. So here, Swami Vivekananda is saying, on the one hand, you are beyond this world. You have surpassed the gunas, these three gunas to which we are all subject, tamas, rajas, and sattva. We are caught in them, and we see these tendencies in us. You are nirguna. You have actually gone beyond them. Nirguna, what is nirguna? Brahman is nirguna. Nirguna Brahman, without any modifications. The infinite absolute reality, nirguna. You are that. And yet, you are also gunamoy. When in Sanskrit or Bengali, in Sanskrit maya, where if you add maya to a word, or in Bengali moy, it means full of that thing. So, Anandamayi Ma, the Divine Mother who is full of bliss. Anandamoy, someone who is what is full of bliss. Here, Gunamoy, you are full of qualities, full of blessed qualities. So it's a kind of using the word in the word guna in a slightly different way. On the one hand, you are beyond tamas and the rajas and even sattva. As we learned from Sri Ramakrishna's teachings himself, we have to go beyond all three gunas. We go. And the robber's story is the perfect story. Do you know the robber's story? Henry doesn't know the robber's story. Do you know the robber's story? Good. Good. Anybody not know the robber's story? The three robbers? You know what I'm talking about? No, there's a blank look on your face. Okay. It's a great story by Sri Ramakrishna. In brief, the gunas are all like robbers because they rob us of our spiritual wealth. We are not able to realize our true nature. So once there was a wealthy merchant was going through the forest, and he was attacked by three robbers. And after capturing him, they stole all his money. And then one of the robbers said, "What's the use of keeping him alive? He may turn us in. Let's kill him." And he drew out his sword to kill the man. Then another robber said, "Well, I don't think we actually need to kill him. We'll just tie him up here. So we'll tie him to this tree." And so they tied him up to the tree, and then they left. After some time, the third robber came back. And the third robber said, "Oh, my sir, are you hurt? I'm sorry, you're suffering a lot. We've made you suffer a lot. Here, I'm untying you. Let me show you the way back to your home." And brought him to the road and said, "If you follow this road, you'll come to your village." And the merchant was really touched. He said, "Oh, thank you, my friend. You must come to my home, and I'd like to feed you." And the Raja said, "No, I can't go home with you. I'll be arrested by the police." So he sent him on his way. So like that, tamas is like the first robber. It destroys. It is darkness. It is strong negativity. Rajas, is like the second robber. It binds us to the world. Sattva is like the third robber. Sattva shows us the path home. Sattva shows us the path to the divine. But sattva cannot go there. We have to go beyond also sattva in order to reach the divine. So, but sattva obviously is to be cultivated. We cultivate the sattvic tendencies in order to take us to the divine. Eventually, we must go beyond sattva also. So here, that's how this nirguna and then also gunamoy, so many qualities. I'm just having a quick look here if there's anything that this is the little book Arati Songs by Swami Harshananda. He has some nice commentary. He says this gunamoy, about this being full of blessed qualities. The previous adjective nirguna may lead us to surmise that God is like sawdust, a tasteless, odorless thing of naught. Hence this term gunamoy, full of gunas or blessed qualities. So that's true. We can say the divine is, just because it's nirguna, it's gone beyond the gunas, doesn't mean God is infinite bliss. You know that Sri Ramakrishna used to poke fun at the Pandit Samadhyai, who was a Brahmo Pandit, Brahmo preacher, who once said in the course of his sermon, "God is dry. We must sweeten him with our devotion." And Sri Ramakrishna just was stunned to hear that. He said, "What? To describe that which is the very essence of infinite bliss as dry?" It just shows that the preacher has no idea what he's talking about. He hasn't tasted even a little bit of the sweetness of divine communion. He's like the boy who said, "My uncle's cowshed is full of horses." And of course, everybody laughs at that joke. In the West, we find it a little bit hard to understand it. Some of these references become easier once we've been to India. And we know that a goshala, a cowshed, is a very common term. Every village, most of our monasteries have goshalas. Most of our monasteries have cowsheds, as it were. And in the villages, well, everybody has all the villagers who are at least not very poor, they'll also have a goshala, a cowshed. And what do you keep their cows? You can't put a horse there. Horse is too big, first of all. So you don't put horses in a cowshed. But someone was saying my uncle's cowshed is full of horses. Horses' eggs, maybe. That's a joke, because it's actually a Bengali term for what a load of nonsense. Gorar dim, something that doesn't exist. The horse's eggs, they say. So they'll say horse's egg.
They say horse feathers.
There's another thing that we use sometimes, but we are not going to say that. Horse feathers, okay. So, Niranjana, Nara Rupadhara, Nirguna Gunamoy. Both you are like that infinite absolute, and yet you are full of blessed qualities. And even if we think of Sri Ramakrishna, his compassion, his readiness always to help sincere seekers of God. He always wanted to feed people who came to his room. And a few sweets at least he would like to feed. He was very funny. He would make people laugh so much. What a sense of humor. He would put the boys on the floor, rolling on the floor with side-splitting laughter. Amazing musician. People who heard him sing said they never heard anyone else with as sweet a voice. The only person who came close was Swami Vivekananda. Full of blessed qualities. All right, shall we go to the second verse? Do we have time? Well, we can start the second verse. Maybe we won't finish it. mochana aghadushana jagabhushana chid ghanakai.
Maybe you should sing the whole first verse together.
Okay. Do you know it? You've heard it, right? But, oh yeah, okay, so we can sing it together. Everybody sing. Khandana Bhava Bandhana Jagabandhana Bandi Tomai Niranjana Nararupadhara Niranjana Nararupadhara Nirguna Gurnamay Mochana. So it's that reminds me that it's composed in Chautal. That means the rhythm. It's a certain. There are these different talas in Indian classical music which describe how many beats per measure. And in Western music, of course, we have 4/4 time and 3/4 time, and sometimes 2/4 time, and almost nothing else. But Indian music has tremendous variety. And the Chautal has 14 beats in a measure, 14 beats. But it's interesting how they, not 14 beats, sorry, 12 beats, 12 beats in a measure, but it's counted as 4 and 4, and then 2 and 2. And so when you'll hear, because typically also the khandani, the little hand cymbals are sounded in this hymn, and they're always sounded on the count of 1. So, Khandana Bhava Bandhana Jagavandana Vanditomai. So how come it seems like there's longer gaps? Because we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like that. So that's why to play the khandani with khandana, when you're first learning it, you have to count. Like that, because it's not a sort of natural rhythm that you'll just do. It's that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, and somehow that's with one of the traditional talas, one of the traditional rhythms in Dhrupad style, that classical style. And it's also another feature of Dhrupad is that typically it starts out very slow and kind of grave and deep and profound, and then it speeds up. Oftentimes a song may be sung at double speed. So after the hymn, as I mentioned before, after the first 8 verses are sung at Belormat, they start over again at Khandana, double speed. So that it will be Nirguna Gurnamay. Then Khandana Bhava Bandhana Jagavandhana Vanditomai Niranjana Nararupadhara Niranjana Nararupadhara Nirguna Gunamai. Of course, then it goes all the way that speed to the 8th verse. And then after the 8th verse is sung that second time, then the 8th verse is again repeated even faster. So the 8th verse is Sampada, and then it'll be Sampada Tava Shri Pada Bhava Goshpada Varijatai Premarpana Samadarashana Jagajana Dukha Jai Namo Namo Prabhu Bhakyaman. Then it gets, the tal changes and it gets really, really rocking. And that part is sung twice, second time faster than the first. And at the very culmination, arati tomar jaya jaya arati tomar hara hara arati tomar shiva shiva arati tomar. So that original song that they were singing in Varanagore before Swamiji composed this hymn, was a song to Shiva, that comes back here in the very last section, where we see there's a arati tomar, jaya jaya, glory glory, arati for you, your arati, we're singing your arati, glory glory, hara hara, shiva shiva, both names of Shiva, of course. That's the culmination. And then at the very, very end, it goes back to the first verse, Khandana, in the slow, again the slow. So it brings it to this feverish pitch, and then closes with just the first line again, Khandana Bhava Bandhana Jagavandana Vanditamai, O breaker of the bondage of this world, whom the whole world adores you, we worship you, we love you, our adoration at your feet, as it were. That's the final line again. So it's a masterpiece of devotional music. And we got as far as the first verse tonight. But I kind of planned on that because I wanted to give some of the history and to talk about some things in depth. And one question that comes up sometimes about the song is, how do you pronounce it? And there are two schools of thought. One school of thought is, well, Swami Vivekananda wrote it in Bengali, you should pronounce it in Bengali. And others say, well, no, yes, but he wrote it using Sanskritic Bengali, so it should be pronounced like Sanskrit. And I kind of veer between the two, because some of the peculiarities of Devanagari are that all the letter va, which we write as a V usually, is pronounced in Bengali as ba, like a B. So the V disappears and all you have is a B. So it's Khandana, and then the A's become O's. So I can't do it properly in Bengali exactly, but Khandana Bhava Bandhana, Jago Bandhana, Banditomai. But in Sanskrit it would be Khandana Bhava Bandhana, Jaga Vandana, Vanditomai. So Swami Swahanandaji seemed to favor the Sanskritic translation, pronunciation, because once what line was it that I was singing, and I sang it very Bengali-ish, and he said, no, you should sing it like...
I agree with you.
You should be Bengali? Well,
especially the Anurag sounds so beautiful in Bengali.
Anurag. Well, I think for Bengalis, we'll sing it in Bengali. Non-Bengalis can sing it more Sanskritic. I kind of go in between. I don't make the O's to O. And here and there, I switch between a ba and a va, I think. They're pretty close.
The part is fun to sing.
That's really, those are kind of the syllables that are used for counting talas and things like that. Yeah, that's Langa Ranga Bhanga. Well, like I think I would say in Bengali, ya also becomes ja, so it's joga shahai. Now, many people won't understand yoga, but if you say yoga, then people, oh, yoga, the helper in yoga.
More
So,
approachable with Sanskrit.
yeah.
There's a wider audience.
Yes.
But some of the words definitely sound more lyrical in Bengali.
Right. Spoken by a true Bengali. Jnananjana, jnana, or versus jnana. Yeah. So anyhow, there's different schools of thought about that. And at Belur Mutt, they sort of go a little bit between. It's mostly Bengali-ish, but not this strong Bengali, maybe kind of a refined kind of Sanskritic Bengali. Yeah, it really depends who's singing, how it goes. So I think I've talked enough. Are there any other comments or questions or? Not online. We have some people joined online. How many people are joined online? 23. Well, greetings, welcome to those listening online. More than we have in the room, in fact. Double what we have in the room. Any questions or comments here?
I want to understand it well. Oh, sorry. I always forget the mic. So I just want to understand the gunas well. And so going beyond the gunas, going beyond sattva as well, is that the same thing as breaking the golden chain as going beyond sattva? Because there's the golden chain. Is that the same?
The golden chain, like in the Song of the Sannyasin?
Yeah. Yeah, is that the
That's a nice thought. Yeah, maybe that even sattva is ultimately a bondage has to be given up. I don't think that's for us to worry about too much.
Okay, yeah.
We are struggling to lift our minds out of the darkness of tamas. Half the time meditating, what do we want to do? Sleep. We're struggling to lift our minds out of tamas. And then restlessness. Mostly we're trying to bring ourselves to a state of sattva.
Yeah, I think in one of the translations that either Vivekananda or Ramakrishna, they talk about God is closest to sattva, but he's beyond all.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
As you approach sattva, you're reaching, like in mathematics, the limit is reaching closer. But to your point, I think we're so far beyond that.
Yes.
Just to get to the.
We can get to sattva, and then we go beyond.
The music definitely helps with the cultivating the sattvic mood.
Yeah, isn't it? It's such a, and interestingly, Swami Vivekananda composed some rules for our order, for our monks, and they're not published. Some parts of those rules are published in the complete works, but they're not. It's not told there. Oh, these are actually from the rules, but a significant portion are not published. They're just the rules for the monks, and the rules that he has for the. There's one part on the worship room or the shrine, and he makes a couple of interesting points about it. One is he explicitly says, Sri Ramakrishna never instructed us to worship him. We are doing that. It's not his instruction. Only he used to, towards the end of his life, he instructed a few of his disciples to meditate on him. But he never told anyone to worship him. We are doing that. He mentions that.
You did indicate at one point that many people will worship this.
People will, yes. But it'll be but in many homes. But he didn't specifically say you will do puja. He didn't instruct Swamiji to set up a shrine with him in the center and to do puja. So. But in connection with that, one of the points in the rules is in the connection with spiritual music, hymns and all that, proper attention should be paid to the tune and the rhythm. So Sri Ramakrishna actually found it very difficult to bear songs that were out of tune or out of... You're laughing, I know why you're laughing. Out of tune or out of rhythm, if the rhythm was off, unless someone had tremendous devotion. It's interesting, if someone had tremendous devotion, then he could bear it. But it would break his ecstasy if someone sang off key or out of rhythm. And so Swami Vivekananda specifically mentioned, and he of course was also such a gifted musician, you pay attention to the rhythm. And at Belur Mutt, actually the duty of leading the evening prayer, that song, is given to the brahmacharans of the training center. So it's actually a training. They're learning how to sing, but they do a lot of practice, and then they lead the singing. And I remember once, the brother who was permitted to play the pakawaj, actually, he couldn't play it well. And he really didn't play it well. And afterwards, he got a tremendous scolding. But he didn't get the scolding so much as the leader, the music leader, who was scolded for letting that guy play the pagwaj. A tremendous scolding. Many of the monks, they were furious that, you spoiled the evening prayer by getting this guy who didn't know how to play the drums. So that's something to just to keep in mind, that we should try to sing in tune and sing according to the rhythm. And if we want to please the Lord, if we can't even please other people in the room with our singing, how are we going to please God with our singing? So that's one thing that occurs to me. Anything else? I think we started today's class without a prayer. I forgot. We'll close with a prayer. We'll do both. We'll first do the opening prayer, and then we'll do the closing prayer. Here's the opening prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitam Astu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we acquire strength together. May what we study shine forth in our lives with one another. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Now the closing prayer. Om Asadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormamritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal